All right. Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Uh, I'm in the middle of a move, so please forgive my informal attire. A little hectic here. Um, I have a Dharma talk. I like this one. I wrote it immediately after my last Dharma talk because it was in my head. But I think it's meaningful, so I hope you enjoy it. Um, If you didn't know, I grew up in New York. I used to take the L train from Canarsie, which is in Brooklyn, into Manhattan. I remember the subways of that era, which was like the 70s and 80s. It was pretty gritty, dimly lit. There was the scent of metal and dust and that thick, dirty orange safety line along the edge of the platform. Um, And always there was the third rail. And as a boy, I was captivated by this third rail. Maybe it was the danger. I remember watching the movie The Taking of Pelham 123, where someone dies instantly by touching the third rail. There was something morbidly fascinating about that. The idea that just yards from the platform, if I were to take just one step in the wrong direction, it could lead to such a sudden and violent end. But lately, I've been thinking about that image, not in terms of physical death, but as a metaphor, a symbol for what we talk about in Zen as the death of the ego. What if the third rail were the line between delusion and awakening? And what if stepping onto it, not physically, but spiritually, was a way of surrendering the self, letting go of the grasping mind? So let me ask you this. If I told you to walk 10 steps into the past and let go of your ego, could you do it? Could you walk 10 steps into the past and let go of it? Can you realize awakening in a memory as a memory? What if I asked you to walk 10 steps into the future to find enlightenment there, somewhere ahead of you? Would that be possible? Or what if I asked you to do it right here, right now, to step fully into this moment and release your attachment to self? Can you do that? This is the third rail. It's not something dangerous. It's the edge of practice. It's where your small mind ends and your life begins. Dogen Zenji taught that practice and enlightenment are not two. Enlightenment is not something that happens in the future when you've meditated long enough, studied hard enough, or purified yourself. In Genjo Koan, Dogen says, when Buddhas are truly Buddhas, they do not need to be aware of themselves as Buddhas. Yet they are actualized Buddhas and go on actualizing Buddhahood. This means awakening happens not through seeking, but through intimacy with this moment, with what is as it is. And similarly, Suzuki Roshi said, each moment is the universe. That is Buddha's teaching. We cannot awaken in the past. We cannot awaken in the future. We can only awaken now, where we are, standing on the tracks of our own messy and miraculous lives. To kill the ego isn't about violence, It's about dropping off the body and mind, just as Dogen said. Letting go of self centered thinking, letting go of the idea that there's a you who attained something. That's what Dogen was talking about. So here's the question again, not about death, but about awakening. Can you touch the third rail right now? Can you die to the self that seeks and simply rest in the self that is? Let the electricity of this moment and your zazen do the work. Let the current of this breath, this sitting, this life reveal the truth of no self. We don't need to walk 10 steps forward or backwards. We just need to stand still and truly arrive. Thank you. Questions?
Mike, I see your hand.
I get the impression from your talk that we need to have the courage to step on the third rail. Not in the sense of risking our lives or anything like that, but we have to, in this moment, actively make that process. I can't think of the right word to use to become aware and stuff. Is that kind of along the lines of what you were talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about an urgency. I'm talking about an urgency to awaken, you know. That's what the third rail is. Once you see it, it gets in your throat like a molten iron ball. You can't spit it out. That's that's the third rail. That's the edge of your practice, and it's accessible anytime. Except, we choose to not live in that place, but it's a place. It takes effort to get there, but it's accessible anytime. So that's sort of the gist of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
So you're asking something like, can we be willing to step on the third rail in this moment, in the present moment? And I think most every Zen student would be like, yes, of course I'm willing. I just don't know how to do it. What would your response be to them?
Well, I was thinking about that, and that was the problem. I was thinking about it. And, then both my dogs came in from their walk and they both licked both sides of my face. And I said, oh, that's it. And then I started thinking about it and I'm saying, boy, that was really joyful. And I mitigated it. And I'm saying, how could that be joy? And, well, it's the middle path, it's not true. Anyway, that it gets no more joyful than that. And that was bliss in my life as much as I think I will ever experience. And that's just where we have to let go because when they're there, I'm not thinking, you know. And dogs have that beautiful silence and stillness, and they make you exude presence. So, yeah. I mean, that's what I would say. Spend time with an animal. Mitch, thank you, Chris. Hey, Mitch, we can't hear you, but we're hearing a sort of Minnie Mouse type of voice.
And there's the third rail.
Yeah, we hit it pretty quick. Thanks, Mitch.
That's
Uh,
is that
uh,
is
you're
this any
there
better?
now. Yeah, we can hear
Okay, Chris. Um, can you gave a pretty powerful Dharma talk a couple of weeks ago. Can you relate this to you were talking about an open heart?
you. Sure.
I mean, I mean, this is the essence of it, isn't it? Really, because we have to let go of a lot of stuff and just
Oh,
live in the moment
yeah.
without all the distractions. And I mean, the only time that we really get to that point is when we're sitting zazen in the way that I think. But I think it also sort of kind of relates to the open heart.
I think, and I'm guilty of this, that we associate, awakening or satori, any state of presence, right, with our mind, but it's really our hearts that are open and conjoined, right? And that's what we don't see because we intellectualize it. It's beyond intellectualization. It's just, when I'm present, I'm present. It's not my mind at all. It's really, I see it, or I've learned to see it as a spaciousness in my heart that I have an ability to access if I could hit that third rail. But most of the time, my heart is pretty congested with things of the world, and I can't get to it. And I can't get to that state of compassion. But, it is exactly what you're talking about, Mitch. And thank you, because, it's not up here, it's this, you know? And it's the heart and the heart sutra and the wisdom of the heart, and the wisdom of the heart is beyond language. So
I I think of it as a and I mean you always make me think. You always make me examine the way that I look at things and the way that other people look at things, and it always and I really appreciate you doing that for me. Um, One of the things that my my little catchwords and little things is to say that things are as they are. When I thought about that many years ago, it sort of kind of released me. It freed me. And I think that until I heard about you talking about an open heart, I started relating those two, and I think that relates to this too. It's an acceptance that you could be in the moment.
yeah,
So so thank you.
thank you. I did say that this state is with what is as it is. So that is exactly things as they are or not. So thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, but by the way, just as an aside, that's one of the first lessons I ever got from Peter.
Well, he
Things are as they are. Let go.
he drilled that into us pretty hard. So, so yeah,
And thankfully, and I thank him for that.
yeah. It's the only lesson we really need. So thank you. All right. No
Matt,
more
did you want to
questions?
ask your question?
Matt? Oh, Matt, you did have your hand up. Yes.
Um, uh, you sort of answered it. I was wondering where you were coming from in terms of uh, answering Mike's question. Um, in terms of how do you get to the third rail? I think that's what you said, Mike, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, uh, yeah. I guess I was thinking is, and you answered it in a way with regards to talking about your dogs coming in and moistening your cheeks. Um, it would you say that it's just something that can't be anticipated? It's something that you can't force. It just comes of its own with practice. When you know doing zazen over and over and over again. Doing mindfulness practice when we're off our cushions. That just gradually assists us in letting go. In letting go.
Yeah. I I think my learning from this Dharma talk when I was really resonating with it was, Buddhas have to work at Buddhahood. And Buddhahood is moment to moment, even for Buddhas. And enlightenment is not detached. Enlightenment, it's expressed through engagement and practice and being with each moment. And that's what I really think the underlying learning for me was and somehow I thought I had a notion that, oh, well, these Buddhas, they're just sitting up there in their pantheon looking down on us and, taking it easy. But, Dogen's interpretation is Buddhahood is moment to moment, and it has to be realized even for Buddhas moment to moment and generated. And, that's our practice, and there's no difference between any of us in this moment in our practice. And in this moment, it's as easy as, a dog licking our face or choosing to hit that third rail. But, it's as easy as actually being with your breath. And we know how hard that is. So thank you.
I have another question, Spencer. What do you
Yes, sir.
what do you mean by generated? That that one threw me a little bit.
How did I use it?
How did you mean it?
I mean, usually when I say generated, things can't be forced, things arise. And I'm actively trying to create anything, I usually find it's a mental condition. And the generation maybe subtly implies more of an organic manifestation with everything, an unfolding maybe. Thank you. Chris.
So, Suzuki Roshi said something to the effect that enlightenment is like an accident, and doing zazen makes you accident prone. And then when I asked essentially, how do you touch that third rail? You said something like your dogs came in and licked your face. So it seems like it's not something we can do on purpose, so to speak. And I was wondering if that's not true, how do you square that circle?
Oh, well, of course, it's not something we could do on purpose because we don't attain it, right? We, it's naturally who we are. It's naturally who those dogs are. So when they lick my face, I'm elated. I'm in a joyful state. I'm not thinking I'm with them. Um, they created a condition or a lack of conditions, and the same conditions exist through zazen when our thoughts drop away. So that's the whole purpose. We're not trying. After a while, we realize we're not trying to create anything. We are that creation. And, being with pets sort of just tells me what the payoff is because it gets me there really quick. And sometimes I could sit for 30 minutes and never get to that place of emptiness that I felt in that second with those animals. So that's sort of the corollary I was drawing. Thank you. All right. Sandy, you've been quiet. Well, it's good to see you, Sandy, even if you don't have
Oh,
comments.
pardon me?
I said it's wonderful to see you, even if you don't have comments.
Oh, thank you. It's good to see you too, Spencer.
Yeah,
Um, I'm glad to hear you're in a process of moving, coming closer to the
yeah.
Zen zone. Um, and thank you for the talk. I appreciated the talk, and it brought up an experience I had. Um, my dogs, my last dog, Winston, had passed away a while back. And after my husband passed away, I really wanted another animal. And I went to the shelter and I adopted an older Chihuahua she was about 6 pounds. And I took her home knowing that she didn't have a long life left, that it would be very short, that I'd have time with her. And I did everything to make her feel good. Um, and I used to pick her up because she couldn't jump. I picked her up and I'd put her in my lap on a blanket and cover her up, and she would sleep, and I'd pet her while she slept. And the experience, the bliss of connecting to another being uh, was really strong with her right away. And I realized that uh, she got very ill very quickly after 45 or 44 days. And I took her to the vet, and she had been crying on the way because she was in pain. And uh, they had suggested that I put her to sleep. And my brain was telling me, well, I could take her with me and then tomorrow go to my own vet because I'd gone to an emergency vet. But then I thought, well, that's not fair because she doesn't deserve to suffer. She's given all this love to me and I've given it back. And I thought, well, maybe the greatest gift I can give her is letting her go. And I decided right then and there that it was. And they let me stay with her and uh, hold her afterwards as long as I wanted to. And it actually gave me a sense of peace to let go like that. Uh, I miss her very, very much. Uh, and eventually another pet because there's just nothing like having um, someone to come home to, and I say someone in the still meaning an animal, not a person, but it, it's that opening up of self is such an unbelievably rewarding feeling. It's to me, it's the closest thing to ever experiencing true love. Um, there's different levels, it seems, of love, and um, what an animal can give to you is beyond words. And you made me realize that, you know, that experience again. And it brings me more joy than it doesn't bring me any pain. So I was just grateful I could do what I could for her. And those types of opportunities in other ways open up throughout our lives. You know, we can meet somebody sitting waiting for a doctor and get involved in conversation, um, and bring joy to somebody else's life, which in turn then opens you up and allows you to feel that gratefulness yourself.
Yeah.
So there's opportunities to experience love and compassion for others. You just have to be open to it all the time. You know, that those experiences will be there for you if you want them.
Mm.
And you don't have to live in anger. You don't have to live in misery. You know, that's one thing like about Buddhism is really showed about misery, that how we create our own and how we can let go of our own misery. And it gives you the tools how to, you know, how to look beyond the self. That
Yeah.
so. Thank you for your talk.
Thank you. You know, dogs produce cortisol when they look in our eyes, and cortisol is produced when we're in love. So it makes perfect sense.
Right.
And
They also, when they want something from you or affection, they tend to move their eyes so that the white shows at the
yes,
bottom.
the sclera. That's
Yeah, and
very human-like. That's
very much.
intentional. All
Yeah,
right. Well, thank you so much, Sandy.
thank you.
All right. All right.
Spencer, thank you for your talk. Your brief talk was a
Thanks, Arthur.
meaningful one. Um, I'm just curious whether this knife edge of a moment that we are in between the past and the future, between samsara and nirvana, between what you call this arising or unfolding of our natural state, and what's on the other side of that is, it seems, I'm curious if it is what Jane has called the backbone of our practice, you know, like a will, if you will. And I'm curious about your thoughts about that. What it kind of comes to the question that Chris brought up, the how, the reason we are here. So I'm curious about your thoughts.
I'll bring that back to that previous Dharma talk that Mitch talked about. And I talked about, those first ox herding pictures. And I think until, we see the ox or we're aware of an opening of the heart and these possibilities, we don't know, right? And as we get into the practice, there's a gravity that draws us into it. And I think we feel relief, right? And this is in the ox herding pictures, and the practice deepens, but we're drawn in. We keep drawing in because we keep deepening our practice. And we don't realize it It's not through attainment, it's through sitting. And as we fall into it deeper, we're able to just let it go. To know the self is to forget the self. And I think at some point in that path, there's an element of spiritual materialism that keeps us practicing because we think we've attained something, and then we let that go. So we have a drive. Our Buddha nature is driving us to our natural nature, and it starts with these small openings, and it can't be explained. I feel it as a compulsion within myself to just be authentic and in a natural state, and I don't know what that means. So it would be like trying to explain a koan, which is difficult and only could be done in the moment. But I would say it's beyond words. And for me, it's very visceral, Arvin. It's a compulsion that, you know, makes me sit and contemplate reality or consciousness. So I think anything intended, anything coerced is the opposite of what we're trying to do. Even if they say, no bad sitting. I agree with that, but don't sit too hard and don't sit with an intention, and I think that we're trying to put language to something that is just our Buddha nature. So, does that make any sense? It's sort of an intangible.
Well, of course, yeah. Buddhism has so much to say. So much. There's so much written, and there's so many people who talk about so much. But in the end, it seems like none of that.
It doesn't matter, right?
Well, it's not even matter or not matter. I was having a conversation with my wife last night about the practice. And at some point, I just said, you know what, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. And she looked at me like this, and she said, fine.
I used to participate in a seminar for men, and it was like finding yourself type thing, and it was all the men learned these skills, and then they were asked a question: "What's the nature of courage?" by a Zen teacher, and for like 3 days, people went on and on and on. The last day, they said, "I don't know." And he was like, "Yeah, right there." So, so it's sort of the same thing. We especially, I know your mind is probably similar to mine, and we over intellectualize. And I find that as much as I read and understand, that just allows me to better give all that up in the moment, because it just shows me the falsity of this condition of form and the creation of form by mind. And that that learning, which seems trite and it's hard to explain, allows you to kick that third rail and give it up. Otherwise, the grasping's too hard because you still believe it. If that makes any sense, at least that's my experience. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Arvid. Mitch?
Trying to get back here. Another one of those little Buddhist Zen catchphrases that have always stuck with me is there's no attainment and there's no non-attainment.
Yeah.
Uh, there's nothing to obtain. Just all I have to do is breathe in and out and be right here. And that attainment is the third rail, along with greed, hate, and delusion, and impermanence, and
Well,
no self, and
definitely the three poisons, right?
yeah. I had a neighbor once. I'm a golfer. I'm not a golfer. I play golf. I'm not a golfer. I'm horrible at it. And my neighbor came by. This is many years ago, and he says, "Oh man, I went out and played golf. Never played golf." He said it was so easy. I don't know what you're always complaining about. Then he came back 2 weeks later and says, "I tried to play a second round of golf and I couldn't hit the damn ball." They say it takes 7 years or 8 years, before you can actually play golf. And I think it's the same thing with our Buddhist practice. We have all this stuff going and we think and then in reality, as soon as we let go, we're a lot better off
Yeah.
with no attainment and nothing to obtain.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, mastery, they say comes after 10,000 hours of practice. But, if you look at a golfer, or even an expert martial artist, they're in that place of no mind when they're doing it. And they didn't get there immediately. They got there through practice, but they were able to give it up at some point, and it becomes naturally who they are. So that's a really nice metaphor, Mitch. So thank you. Matt, you had a question again.
Yeah, actually, Mitch just answered it. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Sensei. All right. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone. I gotta go pack some stuff. So thank you. Bye-bye.